To the midweek edition of Business Life. Coming up in this bulletin, World Bank revises Ghana's end-year growth rate to 4.3%, slightly lower than the 4.4% growth rate target set by government in the 2025 budget. We'll be discussing how Ghana can leverage its improved economic conditions to achieve the set target. Big push agenda affecting budgetary allocation for Ghana's petroleum sector agencies in the first half of the year.
First is to go into the ABFA to ensure that it contributes 100% to the infrastructure project, which we see as.
We have more from the semi-annual report of the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC. Plus, today on the Joy Business Van, we continue our special feature on Bethel Dental Clinic, exploring how laser technology is redefining dental care in Ghana. We've got details of these and more for you. Please stay on. Thanks so much for your company. I am Pius Kojobaka. This evening, the World Bank is more optimistic about Ghana's economy outlook for the end of year. In its latest report, the bank has revised the country's 2025 growth forecast upward, projecting the economy to expand by 4.3% by December, up from an earlier estimate of 3.9%. However, the World Bank remains cautious on inflation. It does not expect Ghana to achieve single-digit inflation by end of year, and of course is now forecasting an inflation rate of 15.4%. And we want to broaden the conversation further and bring in an economist, Professor Patrick Isuming, on the back of this. Thank you so much, sir, for making time to speak to us, and good to see you. Now, how would you say, or basically think, the World Bank had to review their earlier stance about Ghana's growth rate for the year, despite their earlier projected 3.9% growth target for the year, basically?
Good evening, and good evening to viewers. Thanks for having me. I think it was always expected that given how the first half of the year has panned out, the World Bank was always going to review or revise their projections upward. If you look at the fact that in the first 2 quarters of the year, the economy has performed way better than expectation, which has prompted others to upwardly revise their projections. But we have to know that the World Bank is usually generally very conservative about their projections about the Ghanaian growth. So that is why you see that even with the revision, its projection is a little lower than what the government and the IMF are expecting.
And when you look at the 4.3 growth rate, which of course the IMF is saying, is not far from what government's own projection is by way of 4.4% for the year. What does it say?
I think generally, because we're in an IMF program, the government and the IMF have to have the same projections. The World Bank uses a slightly different algorithm for their projections. So it's just telling you, I think we should look at it in terms of the direction of the revision and the fact that they are all projecting that the economy will do better than we initially expected. I think that's more informative than the exact numbers. The main thing is that from where we started at the beginning of the year, where the projections were, and given what we have seen in the first half of the year from the GDP side, there's an expectation that we will do better than expected.
Is that to suggest you are doing something better?
Well, yeah, of course, I think, but we have to understand that we knew this because of the first 2 quarters numbers that we've seen. We already saw that we were doing much better than before. So it means that something is working. We've seen that growth has become more broad-based, especially the second quarter growth number. You realize that there's only one or two subsectors that were contracting. Most subsectors were expanding. And we've seen the strongest growth we've seen in a long time.
All right. When investors get to hear projections like these, what message or signal does it send to them or the investor community largely?
It's generally positive. When the economy is growing, it's good for businesses. If you think about financial investors, if the economy is growing, first of all, it puts us in a stronger position. Incomes are growing, and then if you are thinking about expanding your economic activity in the country, that's more positive. So generally, when growth projections are revised upward, should bring it brings more positive attention from investors.
Despite the positive growth projections, the World Bank says Ghana's business sentiment remains restrictive, so to speak, although improved economic conditions. What is the World Bank trying to tell us? Are they right?
So I think the World Bank is using the Purchasing Managers Index, and it's an index that has its own peculiar interpretation. So if the index is below 50, you are in contraction territory. If it's above 50, you are in expansion territory. I think if you look at the fact that we are still very close to zero, because we are still close to 50. We've only moved from 50.2 to 50.3. So in that sense, we are closer to that cutoff. I think that's the sense in which it says that we are still in contraction territory, but there's obviously improvement. If you look at the more frequent one that we get from the Bank of Ghana, if you look at the last summary of economic and financial data, then you begin to see that from the start of the year, business sentiments have been positive. Of course, the sentiments will eventually translate into action. The purchasing managers reflect more of actual orders and things that are actually happening. So if you think about it, then the business confidence survey is more of a leading measure, and that has shown consistent progress throughout the year. So you expect that by the time we see the next reading, the purchasing managers index that the World Bank is focusing a lot more will catch up.
And on a bit about inflation, the World Bank projected, basically they are saying we will end the year by way of double digits. But already we are seeing single digits inflation. Maybe they would have to revise their projections again. Will that come to you as a surprise again?
Well, I think, again, is the World Bank being a little bit more conservative and being more cautious. We are obviously in the single digits space, but I think it appears that pressures might be coming up for the rest of the year. Whether that's enough to take us all the way back to double digit, I'm not so sure. So I think that the inflation might end up the year in the single digit, and perhaps the bank might have to revise their target again.
All right. Thank you so much, economist Professor Patrick Isubing, for your time here on Business Live. Grateful speaking to us. Now, decision by government to direct more oil revenues into the Big Push infrastructure project is affecting budgetary allocations for oil and gas agencies in the country. And this is due to the move to use funds from the annual budgetary fund amount known as the ABFA finance the projects. Now, Vice Chairman of PIAC has explained to us that although the initiative is laudable, the situation is likely to affect further investments in the sector as the country continues to experience declines in petroleum production. More in this report.
Of its 2025 semi-annual reports, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee made a case for more consultation in order to reverse the situation so agencies in the sector are not denied the needed resources for further exploration. In the first half of the year, petroleum revenue allocated for operations and institutional capacity development of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation (GNPC) was reduced from 30% to 15% of net carried and participating interest. The first half of the year, 2025, saw a decline in revenues to the Public Interest and Accountability Committee as it has been taken off the ABFA. Here's Vice Chairman of the committee, Odelfo Amakwa Abwedu the 8th.
The first thing that will come to mind, how are we going to make $10 billion to execute or implement the Big Push agenda? So, of course, the government will seek to try to get all cuts to ensure that they can maximize inflow for the big push agenda. So the first is to go into the ABFA to ensure that it contributes 100% to the infrastructure project, which we see as something that is very good in the sense that we have been complaining in the past that with the oil money we spread it very thinly. So when we want to see the projects being done with the oil money, we don't see very big projects. And the few that have been done, we see very good results. If you consider the Terminal 3 airport that was constructed with oil money, we see the returns that are coming from it. So we will propagate and say that we should be spending the oil money on big projects that can give us returns. So, however, we think there was not adequate consultation in the review of the Act.
Chairman of the Technical Subcommittee of PIAC, Richard Kojo Elima, fears the lack of funding for PIAC could be a threat to accountability in the oil and gas upstream sector.
Really impacted the work that we do. We are in October. We should have done more than 4 or 5 district engagements by now. We should have done some regional engagements. We should have met our constituent bodies. We should have even met journalists. There were 2 main activities planned for journalists this year. We also actually planned to have a zonal training for journalists across the country. All these activities have been put on hold because of lack of funding. And for the benefit of Ghanaians, the funding that we get also includes the salaries, allowances, and other emoluments of our staff and other committee members. So not all the monies go into the activities that I have mentioned. So we really, our activities have really suffered. And we fear that if this trend continues, it will get to a point where PIAC will not be able to perform its own statutory functions.
According to the report, an ABFA amount of $146.36 million was allocated to the Big Push projects for the period.
Still watching Business Life, and by way of update, Ghana is leading by 2-0. Pause for a breather. I'll be right back. Hello, welcome back to Business Life. Let's now touch on the Joy Business Van. From gum contouring to cavity treatment, lasers are transforming the patient experience, reducing recovery time and eliminating the fear often associated with the dentist's chair. At Bethel, technology serves a greater purpose, helping patients feel seen, safe and cared for every step of the way. Here's the concluding part on the Joy Business Van today.
In a world where dental anxiety keeps many away from the chair, a quiet revolution is underway, using light to ease pain, speed up healing, and redefine what a dental visit feels like.
In today's dentistry, we have what we call lasers. Lasers are largely light amplifications that have been applied to dentistry, and Better boasts a number of lasers. We have diode lasers, we have water lasers, which is right there as well, and these are supposed to help make surgeries less invasive. They help with coagulation, so patients do not bleed a lot. And because we use lasers and we're not using blades, you don't need to give a lot of anesthesia as well.
At Bethel Dental Clinic, lasers are used with soft and hard tissue procedures, from treating gum disease to preparing teeth for fillings. The technology offers a new level of control, one that patients can feel.
There's a debate to which one heals quicker, whether an incision made with a blade or an incision made with laser. But whatever it is, lasers make the field clearer, make life easy, and give the patient the option to choose whether they want to go the traditional blade way or to use lasers.
Beyond comfort, lasers mean faster healing and fewer complications, especially important for patients with diabetes or those undergoing complex procedures. When you think of dental care, you probably picture the chair, the tools, maybe even the x-rays, but behind every successful treatment lies something far more important and far less visible: sterilization. Sterilization is a process of completely eliminating all forms of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and even spores from dental instruments and surfaces. It ensures that every tool that touches a patient is 100% safe. We meet Raquel Cofield, a dental hygienist.
So this is our central processing area, also known as sterilization. This is the heart and soul of our office here at Bethel Dental Clinic. So in the sterilization process, you first bring your instruments in, and they go in the biosonic, where they're decontaminated of any blood or debris. Once they've gone through the ultrasonic process for 15 minutes, they're then rinsed, and then they are inspected to make sure they're completely clean of debris or blood. They're also dried, and then the next station is the preparation station, where we package the instruments. We also wrap them in the autoclave paper before they're ready to go into the sterilizer. Once they are into the sterilizer, which is a high-pressured steam autoclave, the instruments are then autoclaved for 45 minutes to an hour. This ensures that any bacteria, viruses, or spores are killed before they're stored into our cabinets. Once a month, we do what we call a biological monitoring test, where we test each autoclave to ensure that the bacteria and the viruses are killing on the instruments.
Bethel Dental Clinic continues to invest in cutting-edge technology to deliver world-class care. The clinic isn't just focused on individual patients, it's also building strategic partnerships with corporate institutions by offering tailored dental care packages for organizations. Dominic Ansah Asifwa is Business Development Head.
Bethel uses a management software that is fraud-proof. And so if you are looking to ensure that you are a corporate organization and you want to ensure that there is no fraud in the bills that are produced at the end of the month, we have a system that ensures that.
From precision tools and advanced sterilization to compassionate care and corporate outreach, Bethel is setting a new standard, not just for dentistry in Ghana, but for what healthcare can look like when innovation meets intention.
Bethel Dental Clinic, the smile starts here.
The Office of the Registrar of Companies says it is stepping up efforts to help distressed private firms access loans from financial institutions. Acting Registrar Mami Sama Prepa says the move is part of a broader plan to strengthen collaboration between the Registrar's Office, the financial sector, and development partners such as the International Finance Corporation. Here's more.
At the symposium jointly organized by the Office of the Registrar of Companies and the IFC, discussions focused on how to ease access to finance for Ghana's private sector. Acting Registrar Mami Sama Prepa said many private firms are struggling to meet compliance and documentation standards required by banks and other financial institutions.
So the target group includes the financial sector and the private sector. We realize that most distressed companies find it difficult getting loans from these financial entities. So we intend targeting both the financial sector and the private sector so that they can engage each other for fruitful discussions to allow them to restructure these companies, because it's not all falling companies that are in complete distress. So there's a need to engage them and see the need to give them viable structured loans to resuscitate them when the need be.
Country manager of the International Finance Corporation, Karl Kierhofer, reaffirmed the IFC's commitment to supporting Ghana's private sector through technical assistance and investment initiatives.
Most places have groups of people full of great ideas, and also groups of idea with money, looking for ideas on where to put their money. What this does is it provides an international standard framework by which, when these transactions take place between these two parties, that if there is a bump in the road, that there's a clear, transparent to resolve an insolvency and bankruptcy regime. So businesses can continue to operate and continue to have jobs as you resolve that bump. It gives lenders confidence that they will get their money back, but it gives business operators confidence that they can take on bigger challenges.
The collaboration between the Registrar's Office and the IFC is expected to enhance private sector competitiveness and contribute to economic growth through increased access to finance.
Thanks so much for being part of Business Life. I am Pius Kojo-Baka. For more stories, do log on to myjoyonline.com/business. And again, by way of update, Ghana is leading by 3 goals to 0 against the Central African Republic. See you at